Hey, it's Joe West from the West Barn with
Mike Shimshack.
Today we have my favorite person, Kelly King. Hey. You can't. You're in for a good one. A lot of good information if you've ever wanted a publishing deal or ever wanted to be an artist and moved to Nashville. She's I would call her one of the gatekeepers, even though she won't acknowledge that. Secretly one of the most powerful people in Nashville. If you want something done, give it to a woman.
Exactly.
She's a good example of that. She's been killing it for a bunch of years, probably 15 years in Nashville. Before we get started, I want to remind you to hit notifications and subscriptions, leave a comment, do all that stuff, reviews for us so we can grow organically. Kelly King, her intro, I mean, she's such a good friend of mine, and I have so much love for her in my heart that it's actually a little bit odd introducing you. I was signed to Kelly King for 5 years.
Yes.
Whenever we had a publishing company called, or she had a publishing company with Mark Bright called My Good Girl, which was a division of Sony, ATV. And we went on to have a bunch of hits there, 3 number ones, much to the due of Kelly King. And before that, she was Brett James. She had worked his catalog and worked him into his fame. He's nominated for the Songwriters Hall of Fame this year.
Hall of Fame this year, exactly. So
and also, she is currently the A&R for Rascal Flats. If you want to cut on a Rascal Flats record, this is the doorway to it.
Yes.
You can send all of your emails too.
Kelly King.
Right, don't do it, don't do it. And she also has... She discovered, nurtured, signed Brothers Osborne.
Yes.
And is currently their publisher. I can remember we were going to the BMI Awards one year to pick up something for, I think, the Keith Urban song. And you said, hey, let's stop over on Villa Place. We were all like dressed up in our tuxedos or whatever we were wearing.
Yeah.
And we go in, and I'm like, who are these dudes? You know, it's just like this weird little bungalow, and these guys, and I'm like, they were playing some stuff that sounded amazing, and what do you know? They turned out to be Brothers Osborne.
Yeah.
So she's always had this ability, you might not be able to see it because you're you, to find really amazing people and songs that have not yet been recognized by the group.
Yeah.
Nashville is a bunch of followers. They will tell you that they like your music, but they won't sign you. And then whenever someone wants to sign you, everyone comes back and offers you deals that rejected you.
Right.
You find people whenever nobody cares about them and turn them into people. You did that with me. I was an outsider. I got a deal really quick in town and then had a bunch of hits with you. Brett James, I don't know that you discovered Brett, but you worked his catalog.
Yeah, I worked his catalog. He was going for an artist deal early on. He was at EMI at the time. And Mark Bright and Marty Williams was starting a publishing company called Terracell Music and hired me.
You got a bug in your hair.
Oh, thank you.
That's friendship.
That is friendship. Thank you. But anyway, he was our first signing, and it was just a perfect storm of me starting with a new publishing company and being super excited to make a mark in this town. Finally feeling like I was kind of figuring it out. And Brett had a group of other writers. Can I mention who names are?
Yeah, of course.
Troy Burgess, Hillary Lindsay, Angelo, just a great group, and they were all kind of bubbling up, just as is very common in
And those
this
guys
town.
have written so many songs, you hear their names, but they're songwriters, so you don't know who they are maybe.
Exactly, yes.
But they were responsible for like the lion's share of the radio at that point.
Unbelievable. But at that time, they were just kind of getting started. I mean, you didn't really know who they were yet, but they were locking into a sound that was just so different than what really radio was putting out there. So a lot of people at first were like, these guys aren't going to, it was kind of starting to lean a little pop, and, we were coming out of that 90s country sound. And I just flipped when I listened to it all. I was like, this is the coolest stuff. It was so fresh.
And you're the kind of person, when you hear something like that, you can't help but drag guys like, not that I'm a power play, but you drugged me to that house that night before the awards show.
Right.
To see these guys because you were excited. And that's what you do around town. I remember whenever I was signed to you, you were like constantly like, you've got to hear this.
Yes.
On my behalf.
Well, yes. Well,
which is what everybody really needs is a champion. They're few and far between whenever you actually move to Nashville.
Did you grow up listening to did you love pop music yourself?
I did love pop. I loved it all. I mean, I loved my dad. He raised me on Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson, if I can say the name right. All the oldies, Merle Haggard. But he also loved old rock and roll, and
Yeah.
then my
Like
mom,
the band.
yeah, like the band and the Allman Brothers,
yeah, it's cool.
but even going older than that, 50s music and stuff like that. And then my mom loved more of the pop sound, so I got to hear it all, growing up. But then I had my own thing. I mean, I would just start discovering, Joni Mitchell. Well, actually, I have to attribute that to my aunt, and some of that more, if we call it Americana now, but just folky.
And all that stuff leaked its way into country music.
Absolutely.
Like how many like cool band songs are like could be a Lady Antebellum song, or could be a Keith Urban song, or an Eagles song could be a Keith Urban song.
Exactly, especially Eagles. That's
Yeah.
a perfect example. I mean, back then it's pop. It would be considered country now, but I love the Eagles and Townes Van Zandt. Just so many different things. I mean, I was just so lucky because I had, kind of hippie aunts, and everybody loved music, and they were always turning me on to different types.
And you've got a good gene that somehow what you like seems to work. So like you would like stuff like the stuff that, and I can only speak for me and Dave Pahanish, we were writing for so long together. You found that stuff and you're like, this is not what's happening.
Exactly.
So it wasn't a safe sign.
Yeah.
You signed it, and then you were just like, you went out there and you're telling everybody, you've got to hear this,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
it's like, and then people slowly, once a success happens, it's a bigger, more truer success. Look at Brothers Osborne, like we were just talking before off camera. It's like those guys are popular, but they have street cred.
That's right.
Like it's a garners of respect when people do something that's a little left of center and succeed at it. You've been able to find that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with, I really like something that sounds true to themselves. It's not your typical straight ahead sound. You can tell when someone walks through the door and plays something that's uniquely them. It's just, and it's different, but it speaks to me. It speaks to my soul.
How often does that happen? It's
Not,
rare.
I wish more often than it does, but
What's your favorite song on the radio right now?
don't even do that.
I promised I wouldn't ask her. But that's the reason I asked it. I don't want you to, don't answer.
I'm not.
The reason why I ask you that is because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And you were also saying this other thing. People will listen. Kelly said this prior. People will listen to things and say, my friend is as good as X, Y, and Z on the radio, and it feels and sounds like that. But the reality is these guys and girls in music rooms around Nashville writing today are writing songs that probably won't get heard for 1.5 to 2 years if they're lucky.
That's right.
So you have to be writing songs that are so far ahead
That's right.
of where music might be going that you might waste a ton of them because music might not get there.
And it's so true. I don't know that I was even thinking like that in the beginning. I just, at first it was really kind of ignorance of just what I was drawn to and go, well, I would love to listen to that over and over again, or that speaks to me for whatever reason. But I realized that, as time went on, and people would say, what is it? I just never really listened to radio. I just think the most important thing, never chase it. You just can't, like you said, because it's so ahead of its time. But if it's unique and it's authentic, it's going to find its way if it's really good.
When you're in a writing room, you're always looking for, Mike, vouch from this, you're always looking for somebody who shows up and they just have their thing that's like, you could tell they're not ripping off. You don't have to say, hey, we're kind of on that other thing. You want somebody who's bringing some new information.
That's right.
So little of that on the business side of Music Row. And I sound like this is like an infomercial for Kelly King. But what I loved about working with Kelly King, I worked with her for 5 years and I never had a complaint. People whine about their publishers nonstop. It's always their publisher's fault.
Really?
Right?
Never heard such a thing.
But I never had a complaint about Kelly King because I always knew that she had my best interest in mind. And even when we disagreed, it was based off of her fighting for the song or fighting for the idea of the creative, not like, that won't work in Nashville. You can't do that. Well, you were like saying, go further, be further, give me something that I can play when in the room that no one else has heard.
Exactly. Well, I just think that I'd rather be pitching something that someone can aim to be and make them a better artist.
Let's talk about that, pitching. Okay, so Kelly King, Kingpin Music. Look at, there's two of them here. Where's yours, Mike?
You need a little sparkle in your tooth when you do it, like ding.
Mike doesn't have one. I wonder why.
Well, next time.
Budget cuts
So
at
rough,
Kingpin
man.
Music.
It's so rough.
It's really rough. But anyhow, I'm thankful I got one. Kingpin Music is your publishing company. You've been at a billion companies. Kingpin is a company that the Brothers Osborne are on, right?
Yes.
You are a publisher. You are an A&R person, like we said, for Rascal Flats. Tell us, let's walk through everybody in America wants a publishing deal, right? Yeah. So like you get these strangers coming onto Music Row, you could tell they're all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, first time walking into your office. You know that gag. We all look back at our time when we did it. And they walk into your office and it's like, we want to talk to that person.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's give them a perspective. Music publishing in town, you've got this company, you've got writers signed to this publishing company. A lot of them are co-ventures, meaning the funding comes from a major like Sony or Universal or BMG Rights.
Or Warner Chappell.
Probably one that's important to you.
Yes.
They pay for the expenses of those writers, you sign into a publishing deal, and then you go around town and pitch it. Yes. And that's a word that seems so common to us, but it probably isn't to everyone else in America.
Right.
So tell us like what your pitching schedule, what is the current environment of pitching? We know back in the day what it used to be, but like how, if I gave you a song that you loved, how do you find a home for it? How does that process work? Who do you play it for? How do you play it?
I think so many publishers have different ways of doing it and different philosophies, but I guess the way I do it is, you know, a lot of times if a song comes in and I just love it so much, I try not to think too hard on exactly where it should be. You know, I mean, I mean, a lot of times it's obvious, you know, if it lends itself to be more country, more pop, or something it says, I can, you know, envision a certain artist wanting to say that. And a lot of times right now, people are looking at lifestyles, you know, because it's a lot about, you know, it's not just about the music they're putting out there, but they're trying to have a brand. So, you know, there's just so many things that you have to think about when you're pitching, but also just going out, and if it's a song that just really speaks to me, I just try to hit as many people and start top to bottom, you know.
So you'll get an MP3 from somebody. Mm-hmm. You get that and you think, oh, this feels like it might be a good
Tim McGraw. Right. You know, yeah.
So do you start with like who this might be good for, or do you just put it like in the release schedule of like blasting everybody in town with a song?
No, I mean, I know a lot of people do that. I don't personally. I mean, we really are very methodical. I have a great creative coordinator who has got a great ear, and he and I have meetings every morning when we get new songs in. We listen through, we figure out what our, you know, which ones are our favorites or which ones that jump out and go, oh my gosh, well, we've got to get this to, you know, Tim or to, you know, Blake Shelton or whoever it may be. And those become the obvious ones, and you kind of put those in. We've now started playlists, and so we'll put it in the little Blake playlist or wherever it is. And then other ones we just love, but we don't know exactly what to do with them quite yet. They're not obvious, you know, because again, as you know, I don't really like the obvious, you know, I like those left to center pitches. Those are what are the most fun, and a lot of times end up being your biggest hits.
Sure, definitely.
So, you know, those are, you know, then you just kind of have fun with it, and you're like, well, where should we go, you know, and
let's say you hear a song, you're like, this is a Tim McGraw pitch. Mm-hmm. How many inroads to Tim McGraw are there? I mean, there's like the producer, there's the manager, there's the record company.
Yeah, who's the first person you go to?
Well, that comes down to relationships, and that's kind of a big part of, you know, how long you've been doing it and how many people that you know and who you know and how well you know them. And it's really important to know their style, you know, because I know, you know, having the opportunity to work with back in the day when, you know, Dan Huff and Daryl Franklin, you know, I knew what jazzed them, you know, so I'm like, they're going to love this, you know, and it would fit for their artist. So that's where I'm going to go. And just getting to know people's styles and is a big part of it.
How do you decide? Let's say like for a person like you, like if Dan Huff's cutting the record, you've got probably 6 different ways to get the song to Dan Huff. Mm-hmm. Do you send them all 6 ways, or do you send them one way?
It depends, because I think there's some people that, you know, sometimes you've got a really good relationship with somebody and you want to send it to them first and give them that opportunity for them to take the credit, you know. Like I've got certain A&R people that I just love and we're very close, and I want them to have that opportunity to take it around and have their artist. Right. You know, even sometimes if I can get straight to the artist, I still want it to come from that A&R person.
That's the whole thing. Like, I've been watching Billions. And it's about a hedge fund thing. It's one of those things that once you start watching, you're like, there's an entire world of nuance to the thing that you thought. You know, you thought it was this thing, but then when you get it, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Right.
But like the idea, like everybody and their mother who's in Omaha trying to pitch a song now, mm-hmm. They call this, we're just going to blast it out, run a billboard, and we'll put it in everybody's inbox, and it'll be, you know, but there's a nuance to how do you really end up being successful getting a song cut.
Yeah, and there's definite finesse to it, for sure. And, you know, like, I mean, I don't want to knock this because I think it's smart, but a lot of people these days they'll blast weekly, several songs to go through their favorites. And I think that's really smart. There's a lot of people out there that want to listen like that, when I'm flipping over to my A&R side. But unless I know that they've put some thought into my artist, then I'm like, I don't really have the time to go sit and listen through this unless I've just got a ton of time on my hands, which is not very often.
Do you remember when Gordy Sampson and Hillary Lindsey and I think Brett James, they did this thing, it was through Combustion Music, where they did video shoots at Oceanway?
Yes.
Do you remember this?
I remember that. I went to one of those. Yeah, it was really cool.
But it was like they thought, and I thought that was a really clever way to pitch
Yeah.
Great idea.
that stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I can remember the old days, you'd come in and you'd have your CD, and you'd hand it to the guy, and he'd go, oh, thanks. And he'd grab your CD, and he'd go,
Stick it at the top of the...
right? And
Yeah.
CDs. And it was almost like, I'm never going to get out of that pile.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, it's the responsibility of people to say like, hey, we're going to do a rooftop show on the top of Starstruck and invite sync people and get sync cuts. Or we're going to do this creative shoot at Oceanway and we're going to pitch these songs and we're going to start sending around as videos to people. It's like, that's the kind of thing that's like, that makes the difference. People starting to talk and rumble in this town.
Yeah, and just finding creative ways to do it. I mean, I love, being invited to go hear writers play because you never know, what you're going to hear out of that. And hearing it come from that writer, and because their delivery is like no other, that's a big way to fall in love with a song. In the old days, I don't want to call it old days. And actually, I have to correct you. I have been since '94, so I've been in it for a long time. I've seen a lot of change. Don't do the math.
1984 to 1912 puts you 118 years in the music business.
Exactly. So there has been so much change over the years of how people pitch. I used to love back in the day when you would get a song and you're like, oh my gosh, and you would be able to actually call that person and say, I'm coming over right now. I've got the song for you, and talk about being able to get a cut that way. There's just this energy, the energy, your excitement going on.
You showed up to play it. They showed up to listen to it.
They showed up to listen, and the energy. And
they do this. This was my favorite part of those meetings. Song goes in, CD player, they hit play. The next 3.5 minutes is this. People over nodding to your song, which is super awkward.
Do you remember in New York, though, where you'd come in and play it for an A&R guy? And the laptop would open as they were listening to your stuff, and they're just like returning emails. I'm like,
I've had that.
It's cold,
oh,
man.
yeah, like they're not even listening. You're like, really?
Yeah.
No. My writer just spent however many hours, and you're over here, looking at a catalog.
They were more courteous in Nashville, for sure.
So if someone's to move to town and like start doing the rounds trying to get a publishing deal, what turns your head? What actually lights you up about hearing one out of a million people?
I mean, it really does come down to when they come in my office. First of all, I can't explain it, but there's an energy that happens of I feel something with that writer. Like we just have an ease of the way we communicate. It starts, seriously. It's weird, but I'm like, I really like the way this person,
It's like dating.
It is, yeah. Just something feels right. And then as it slowly progresses, then all of a sudden you put the songs on and you're like, oh my gosh, I really like what he's doing. I like, figuring out what it is they're doing. As you hear several different songs, you're kind of seeing a common thread, of what they do. You hope, not always. And then, there has to be, I want it to be a good person because, a kind person, somebody that I know that when I put them in rooms, it's going to be enjoyable for those people and the other writers, because I'm taking a chance, asking these established writers to take a chance with the new writer.
True.
So I want them to, see them coming
The true
again.
commodity is the people's respect for you.
Well,
so every time someone enters a room on your behalf, well, then
it's a reflection.
Your market economy of respect goes up and down.
That's right. And so I want, so not only do I want them to have the talent, be able to bring what their talent is, but also bring a positive energy. I think that's really important. But I also think it's important for, I can tell when a writer knows his own strengths. And that is huge to me because some people come to town and they'll play me a song and it's like they've heard the radio and they want it to sound just like the radio. They're trying to, and I think to myself, these people are going to be competing against the writers here that already have it down. They're already writing the hits, and and they've already got their name established. So when an A&R person or even an artist is looking at these songs, they might be equally good, but when they see a certain person's name on it, they're going to go there, So I'm like, bring what you do, and whatever it is you do
That's
the
a huge
best
point.
you can. Yeah.
Find out what you do that's really unique.
Right.
Lean into it and make it like viable in that genre.
That's right. Bring your best. Bring what you do best. I mean, it's great for them to continue to want to get better. Say they come in as a great lyricist or a great idea person, but they want to be more well-rounded. Yes, work on if you want to be a better producer. Work on if you want to be better at a guitar player, melody person. But if you know that why you're here is because you are really great with lyrics, then do that and do it the best you can.
And that brings up a good point. I have two things. I don't want to forget the other one. But so like, there's certain kinds of gunslingers that come to town. Mm-hmm. There's dude that comes in and he opens up his laptop and never touches a guitar.
Right.
It's it's like there's that person that's just totally lyrics.
Right.
There's people that come in and they can't really pull off the lyric thing, but they're like killing it with like melody and music.
Right.
So it's like, okay, that's another type. And then you have these people that flow in between. Some of the monsters like Jeff Steele that
Can do it all.
forget about it. You better just like pack a good lunch and know how to type that day. Right?
Yes.
Or Craig Wiseman that's just like, you got to run full speed to just keep up with a dude like that.
Or just scoot on over and let
So
him do.
am I missing any other, like when you look at like the stereotypical writers, there's like super melody guy that plays instruments. And now of course there's the lyric guy, and now of course there's the track guy,
yeah.
which was like when I came to town, I was kind of
the first one.
the original track
You
guy.
really were.
And I'm not even a track guy, I don't think.
Yeah, but that I thought about that because I was like, gosh, I didn't even realize I, utilizing you more as the track guy.
Yeah, but it's like is there anyone that I'm missing?
Well, I don't know if you're missing. I just think
hot girl lead singer
there's that.
who rummages through her purse when she comes late and then doesn't contribute.
Yeah.
There's that one.
Yeah, there is that.
And to be totally truthfully honest, hot backwoods dude that does the same thing.
Right, exactly. Yeah, but I think just an editor. I think a lot of times writers can really be great when they know when to get out of the way. They know, when to hop in. There's just like, I have a writer. I love this when he told me this. He said, because they had a lot of hits together, and he said, I don't know what it is about this other writer, but whenever he's in the room with me, I write my best song.
Yeah.
And I found that so interesting.
I found that to be the case too.
Yeah.
You brought up a good point, an editor. So there was a period there where I was writing a lot with the dude, Travis
Meadows.
Travis Meadows.
Uh-huh.
And, Travis was such an artist. And he got on such roles that I found myself in those co-writes. I had to accept it. Because if I were to say, hey, well, what about this? And throw in a melody or something, I'd just be slowing him down.
Right.
And it wouldn't be better.
That's a critical part of being a good co-writer.
I think that is.
You recognize.
I hated it.
I know,
it goes against your DNA, you
Right.
know? But I was an editor for Travis. Like, we get these great songs. We wrote like 5 or 6.
But that's an important piece.
It is. I think sometimes it's the best piece. When you see somebody rolling and getting it, it's like, get out of their way.
That's it.
And if you see them needing a moment of like, okay, I can jump in here, or if they look to you, just give them that encouragement. I mean, that's one of the big things I hear about Shane McAnally. They're like, he does something in a room that he just gets you so jazzed. But yet, he's such a great writer in his own right. But like, a lot of it is his energy and his, go with that, do that, and I love that. I think that's so important.
It's tough.
Mm-hmm.
You don't move to this town to type on a laptop.
Right.
And sometimes you have to check yourself and say, hey, ego, I know you think you're a gunslinger, but not today.
Yeah.
Today you're supporting crew. You're the guy off
right.
like standing by the double doors by the saloon, that is just ancillary, but it's like sometimes that's the best. That if you truly want a great song, sometimes you have to get out of the way.
You got to get out of the way
of the song.
And I love artist writers, that know a lot of them can't do it, and they'll be the first to tell you that. But I love an artist that can jump in a room and be with another artist and quickly realize this is for them, and I'm good with that, and I'm going to try to make it the best song for that artist.
Yeah.
This is not my day, and knowing how to.
Takes a lot to do that.
It really
Very
does.
Mature.
I think it's so mature.
And you want to make sure you're not always that guy.
Yeah, yeah.
You want to make sure that you don't put yourself in that situation. But I tell people that I think your songwriting career should be a mixture of mostly tempo, and then some songs that you think are dumb.
Yeah.
Like I thought American Ride, we should even demo it. I had to have my arm bent to demo American Ride.
Is that true?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
And it's so great too.
Who bent your arm?
I
Kelly?
was like, who?
Both Dave and I.
I was like, who would ever cut this song? It's just so absurd. I loved the song, but I just thought it was absurd. And it was like one person, Toby Keith, and that's who we pitched it to. You took us in there.
Yeah.
We were pitching Dave Behanisch as an artist and pitched it to Allison Jones. And we wanted to do this thing. We didn't have the time, but we wanted to do that thing where we said the speech like only one person can cut the song. We wanted to have like the briefcase from Pulp Fiction where you lift it up.
It's the glow.
And it's just the glow. They never reveal it.
Right, what it is. Yeah.
But it's a good point. It's like you should write a little bit of stuff that you think is frivolous Macarena. You should write always what you believe in, hopefully, and most of that up tempo. And you should write some mid tempo, and you should write some stuff in 6/8. And it's like you should have a varied thing. And part of that should be, I need to get into rooms where I just serve the song. And hopefully those are single digits.
Yes.
Where you're just a typist for the day. Because you don't want to be there, but you do want to be a part.
You want to be an
always
important part
of great songs.
Yes, absolutely. And I just lost my train of thought, but I was thinking that, well, I've just lost my train of thought.
Well, I have a question for you.
Okay.
I don't know if I know the definitive story of how Without You was cut.
Do you know it? I know it.
Tell
I know
us.
my perception of it.
Okay, what's your perception of it?
I got that song cut. No. That's not true. That song, all right, so Keith cut that song. Me and Dave wrote it.
Keith Urban.
We were writing that song. It was based off of Danny's song.
Danny's
song from
Kenny
Oh,
Loggins
Danny's song.
Messina.
Oh,
Yeah,
Dan,
Loggins
yes, of
Messina.
course.
So it's got that flat 7 in it. It's got the structure is similar to it. And it was like we loved the way that song felt. So we wrote. Dave started that song and brought it in like with a chorus in part of the first verse. We rewrote the chorus. He had just bought a car, so it was like the new car, the guitar. So we tweaked, edited all that stuff. Wrote the second verse and the out together. So that song was like done in 2009. It was demoed because the reference to No One Ever Heard My Song, Now It's Climbing with a Bullet, was about the Jimmy Wayne song going up the chart.
Yes.
So it was 2009. And then Tom Bukovac said, hey, this would be perfect for Keith. And he said, do you mind if I play it for him? We gave him a copy, never heard back.
Oh,
Mark Hill, who was at one time Keith's music director, said, hey, that song would be perfect for Keith. Let me play it for him. The whole time, Kelly and Cole Wright are pitching it around town. The demo is super simple, and it's up on YouTube if you want to search it. We'll put a link to it in this video. It's literally a banjo, an acoustic guitar, a shaker, me singing background, and Dave singing lead. It's super sketchy, like we did it after
Very
the song. No click, or if it is a click, we're wandering all around it. It's not like a real, what you call a slick demo.
Yeah.
Then we were working, did you hook us up with Emily West?
Yes.
Emily West had cut a song that Dave and I wrote called Completely Yours that through all the odds ended up finally making the record on her.
Now.
And I started cutting some sides on Emily. Me and Dave were writing with her and we were cutting sides. And Emily, me and Dave had put out this little CD that was called Nashville. And it was just essentially our demos. And that CD went on 13 songs on it. 9 of them were cut by major label artists.
That's
and
unreal.
3 went to #1.
Right.
That's incredible.
It's crazy.
Right. So it was very good to us, that CD.
Right. But I get the credit for the Tim McGraw cuts because those were Missy Gallimore.
Oh yeah.
I wanted to make sure because Missy needs to,
This is your publisher writer dynamic.
Like, don't forget
just
that
for the record, slow your roll. Just for the record, I want you to know. Absolutely. Yeah. And you may have gotten this cut too, but my understanding was that Emily West had a copy of Nashville and was at the CMAs, and there's a photograph out there of her handing Nashville to Keith Urban at the CMAs.
I do remember that. She got full credit for that.
Right?
It was her. Yes.
But it was like an aggregate of, it's like you point to why the camel, you break the back of the camel, is that what the saying is?
Yeah.
The straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
And she was the one that put the one on top that collapsed, but there was a whole village. But there's an actual photograph of her handing the CD to Keith, and the next day he called and said he was going to cut it. And then I also tell the story during writer shows that we had been wanting so hard for Keith to cut that song for so long,
right?
But he didn't have his baby girl yet, and until verse 2, Along Comes a Baby Girl,
right?
So it was like, it's funny. It's like you pray for what you want, and it's like timing is everything.
Yes.
And the timing worked out for that.
Yep, exactly.
But yeah, that's my recollection. Am I wrong?
No, you're totally right. And I love that you acknowledge that, it does take a village. It takes a team, because there's a lot of things that go on in the background. Some people do the slam dunk, but, it is good to recognize, knowing that all those pluggers out there, are doing.
And people will always say, like, hey, my publisher didn't get that cut. I got that cut.
Yeah, and they're like,
but
I don't know what's being set up.
That's true. But what would you be doing all day, every day, if you had to go park cars as a valet?
Right.
Would you have been in that room? Would you have been able to focus on? All I did for 3 years was hunker down, and I had RCA Studio C, which was right across the street from where our office was,
right,
or my publisher's office was. And I spent all day, every day, making records and demos of songs.
And it just
I wouldn't have been able to do that,
right,
even if you took out.
Right, because it relieves you of, just knowing somebody is out there every day taking care of you. We're constantly, that's what we do all day, every day. Where can we go? And now it's becoming more not just where can we go pitch the songs, but who makes the best sense for co-writing? Because it has become so much about camps, and you just have to be extremely strategic. You think, okay, that guy works, a certain artist loves him musically, loves what he does, what melodies he brings. It speaks to them. So you have to be methodical and think, okay, well, my lyric person could really come in and enhance this melody and make this song the best it can be. And then you get it in the hands of that artist.
How many people in town are in that camp? Would you guess and I'm asking as like a listener, because I'd love to know. There are this very small group of people responsible for, I'd say, 80% of the hits. How many people are in that group?
That are responsible for the hits?
Yeah, like if you were to write with this person, you're gonna have ends, and the same song would get cut that wouldn't get cut if it was cut outside of that name.
Well, I think it's a very small group. Are you wanting like a number? Is it
40 people? Is it 20 people?
I would think it's like, I think it would be like 20 people right now.
I think you're right.
Yeah, but I also do think there are some incredible up-and-comer writers that are going to give everybody a good run for their money, and it's going to be exciting.
So it's still doable. You come in and blow people's doors off, people will listen. In a town that stepped over Chris Stapleton for a decade.
Yes.
Right? So keep that in mind, people. When you're talking about coming to Nashville and blowing off people's doors. Chris Stapleton, I played in a write-around with Chris Stapleton, and I wanted to use my phone a friend every time it was my turn. It was like, pass, next.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to sit this one out. But it's like Nashville stepped over that guy for a decade.
Yeah.
He got some cuts and some hits. But like keep that in mind. If you do have the goods, there's always a perfect time where things can work out, and it's your moment.
That's right.
The moment's very important.
And that is very important, because I think that, that gets down to talking about, being called a 10-year town. You need to come ready to work extremely hard, not give up. Know that it's not going to happen for you tomorrow. So many people think, they're so great where they come from. They get so much, great reaction, and then they get here, and it's very humbling. But it's like, stay with it.
Yeah. Right.
You
You have to love it.
And you also have to, I think it's important to have a publisher to encourage you to stay with it.
Yeah. I don't think there's a lot of good publishers.
Oh.
Well, no, I didn't mean it like that.
Yeah.
What I meant was like, to have somebody that truly believes in you. I can remember Kim Wiggins talking to me once when she was at Sony, and they had just acquired EMI, and they had so many writers there that she was saying, like, I'm at the office at 8 o'clock and I can't listen to all the songs, and I just, like, it breaks my heart that I can't even sort through the media to be able to go out and do my job.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a literal translation. That was what I walked away with believing.
Yeah.
So there's people that are just overworked, but it's like, I always felt like if you were in a room, I knew you had my best interest.
Oh.
And I don't think that is prevalent. Mikey had a deal in town where he felt underrepresented. It just wasn't a Nashville.
Signed out of Los Angeles too. So.
But it was for
tricky.
Carnival, right? Was it Carnival?
No, it was Stage 3.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, and I love the guy, Tim Hunzy, here in town. I loved him. But I remember him saying to me, listen, man, I don't know how to say this to you, but I'm kind of not into the stuff you do.
Oh gosh.
Well, I was signed.
Thanks,
I was
publisher.
a pop writer. No. Tim was cool. I actually appreciated the honesty.
His honesty, exactly.
Yeah, Missy, who was with him, she, on the other hand, got the pop stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Which is
so you had
hilarious.
your person.
Which is hilarious because, for those, Missy's pretty country
Yeah.
as a person.
Right.
But she understood pop music.
Yeah.
She's a great publisher.
She's a great
But you
publisher.
didn't necessarily have a hero in town, is my point.
No.
I think
you need a hero.
you absolutely need a hero because exactly. I really do because when you sink your teeth into a writer, that's a lot of I think what the secret is I'm not the type of publisher that likes what somebody does. Oh, I think we'll try this. I think I'll sign them. I got to love what they do before I sign them. And when I do, it's like, we're going to win. We're going to make this happen. And I'm going to stick with you until you do and spread it from the mountaintops how much
awesome.
I believe it.
That's what people need. And I'll tell you, after 5 years, I felt like you did that every day. So thank you.
Is it easier or harder now than it was, let's say, 10 years ago?
Oh, God, so much harder.
It's
just
because of the camps and the tightness.
The camps.
In the economy, the music economy is just so shriveled up. It's like a raisin at this point in regards to where money is coming.
Well, yeah, that, and also just the amount of time that a single is, in play and going, on the charts.
It's like a week. Right?
Yeah. Well, no, it's a long, long time to be able to get that opportunity to get that next single. So, so just single is so important. You're not getting your, the mechanicals are just not what they used to be.
Mechanicals being hard record sales, which we don't do anymore.
Right.
Do you tend to look for writer artists or artist writers, whatever you want to call it, versus just straight songwriters?
I kind of look for everything. Like I love a good artist writer. It's so much fun to develop and watch them. But I think it's equally important. And this is just me. I think for a while everybody's like, got to have an artist writer, got to have artists, or
because they're the vehicle.
Well, they're the vehicle, and then you're assured that you're going to have a lot of songs that are going to be possibly released. But I have a different philosophy. I really want to find great lyricists, great people that you can put in the room with those artists because, they need them.
The artists will write the regular song.
Yeah.
They'll fill the 8 slots in the record up with their regular writers, what everyone can do. But you need somebody stunning.
That's going to take that song to the next level, and really make them a viable artist,
I wanted to ask you, so now that you've been signed as a director of the publishing division to places, but now you've got your own shop. Mm-hmm. I assume that in the old days when you wanted to sign, when you had Sony and you were with Mark Bright, I assume that when you wanted to sign a songwriter at My Good Girl, which was the publishing company, it was probably like you had to go now on a campaign to justify it.
Yes.
Nowadays, you are the one that you have to, you're the end all?
That's the beauty. That's what I love and why I did go on my own is because if I fall in love with somebody, I know that, I just feel so confident that it's going to work because I believe in them. Hopefully they believe in me and we're going to, so I couldn't handle it when they would tell me I couldn't sign somebody that I would be so excited about, and I would go on to see them do great things, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could have been a part of that. But yeah, no, I love that I can be that person, Now I am in a, doing a co-venture with Warner Chappell, and it's very important that they're on board as well, of course, but at the end of the day.
But they're in business with you.
Right.
It's like, if I were Warner Chappell, they'd be like, I don't care. I'm in business with Kelly King. Whatever she thinks, I want her to run that business autonomously and follow her mission statement.
Right. So they're very supportive. I couldn't think of a better partner.
Can you tell us, and you don't have to tell us anything about anybody specific, what is the new Nashville publishing deal? It's a full pub deal, meaning that they take all the publishing portion, none of the songwriters portion,
right.
I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
What's a draw look like? What does demo budgets, and if there's still travel budgets, what does that look like?
Okay, so that is kind of a tough question because I really think it depends. But I do know that it's getting better for writers getting a little bit of a higher draw than they were maybe 10 years ago because the market was so bad and it was so scary. Back in 2011, those times, new writers, it could have been as, 18, 20, 25. I feel like it's gone up.
$25,000 a year.
Yeah, 25 is about pretty average, I would think, for a brand new writer.
And is that you saying now or was back then?
Well, I think now, somewhere between 25 and 30, but it really kind of depends on how much developing you need. But I think you may give them a little bit of a higher draw, but you also, your term is going to be longer because it's going to take you longer to get them off the ground. It used to be like, usually a 3 deal, with 1 year options where you could get it.
Meaning you signed 3 years. They have options to drop you all 3 years.
Yeah.
Not your option as the songwriter.
Right.
And then year 4 and 5, there's an option where you could opt out.
That's right.
It's the golden rule.
The songwriter.
Yes, but I think now it's kind of, at least for me, I want it to be a longer deal because I'm realizing how long it takes to get, even a writer that comes in and blows, my socks off and I'm thinking he's great. It just because of the competition and just, everything we've been talking about.
There's probably a whole other economy of like, hey, let's get that person that someone just spent 4 years making great in the secondary market,
Let
like
me
the
tell
used
you.
car market. Like, I'm going to grab that guy when his option's up.
It's so true because, I've always been known to be like a first time, I like to get the first time because I love watching them grow and being a part of it. But it's come back to bite me. Thank goodness I've had some writers that have, are hanging in there with me and we're doing, second deals and third deals. And I've got one writer that is just phenomenal and he's finally coming into his own as far as I think he's going to be something to be reckoned with. But it's, it's taken, we're at 7 years and it's about 7 years when you see, but he's stuck in there with me and I've stuck in there with them because I believed in him so much. And there were so many times that he'd want to, I'm moving back to wherever he's from and I'm like, don't do it, because I knew in my heart he was going to be, just one of the biggest writers in this town. I know he is.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah, but that's a big thing. You just, if as a publisher, I think it's important if you're going to dig in with this person and you're going to, hang in with each other.
Yeah. So you said, let's say it's $25,000 on average. Draw.
Yes.
Okay, so $25,000 a year comes to you, about $2,000 a month. Mm-hmm. Is there demo budgets still, or are those?
We have a budget set up. I can't. I don't even know
what
it
do you
is
want to
right
pay for a demo? Like, what is it like when a demo comes in now and it's like above this? You start to go.
You don't want to pay much because there's so many people out there that because you're given those track people. That's kind of their third. You really kind of expect it to be.
So is a
free.
track person is a track person almost always booked in the session?
Not always, and there are times when you have a two-way and you have and that they need a song to be demoed, and that is a hard question. It's been so long because I've got so many people that just do it for us. But yeah, it's not much.
We're talking
500,
500.
maybe. Yeah, I'm just kind of throwing that out there.
Well, keep in mind that if you book a Nashville session with a union, with 5 guys, a union session with drums, bass, piano B3 being one guy, piano B3, 1 electric guitar player, 1 utility player. If you book that session on a pay for the studio, and by the time it's all said and done, people don't want to spend. In the old days, didn't want to spend more than $800 per song.
Yeah,
and in a session, you can usually get 5 songs done if you're rocking and rolling. You do the math. They want to make sure that if you got a demo submitted and they were charging, like I had an Andrew Dorff demo that I think he put like a choir on or something.
Yeah.
And it was like an $1,800 demo. And I remember Sony calling me and being like, what is happening? So once you got above 800, you'd start getting phone calls.
Yes.
And that demo is spread throughout. So if me, Kelly, and Mike write a song today, and we have a song, if we have a demo that's $800, we'd each pay $240. Am I right?
Yeah.
Is that the math? Am I right?
Yeah.
So our publishers would extend the money. And then whenever you have your big hit, they pay back your demo fees with that, at least half of them.
Yes.
So you have to recoup the money. You got to recoup the money that they advance you. The $25,000 slowly gets paid back by these little .0002 streams start to pay you back on your debt.
That's right.
And then eventually you pay back your debt and you start to see money from mechanicals and record royalties. You always see money from the performance royalties. So BMI, ASCAP, and CSAC in the United States, those collect money for any time your song is performed. So that money comes right to the songwriter. That's why you always want a single. So like you'll get a single on the air and you'll get a check for $250,000 for the quarter, that it was played. So that's the gist of it. I want to know what hit songs are making today. Do you know, like in the old days, I'm in the process of considering song and catalog. And I did the math on my stuff, and now I know what these songs actually made, these hits.
Yeah.
Those songs, in the old days, if you had a rockin' song, like Do You Believe Me Now total copyright made over $1 million the first year.
Yeah.
So to me, that ended up being about 150 grand off that song in that year when you divide it by everybody's publishers and you do all the pieing out of that.
Right.
What would you say a hit song nowadays? Do you know what the performance royalties are on them?
You know, this is horrible, but I don't.
I wish you did. That's a question. We gotta talk to some folks and see what that.
Because it's changed and I just really don't know.
It's probably, my imagination tells me, it used to be that we made great money because they had an arbitration agreement with terrestrial radio that paid some, depending on market size and audience, would pay really good money.
Uh-huh.
But now you look at that pie where terrestrial radio sits in people's consumption of music. It's so small. Yeah. We were making good money because of that little sliver that was the whole pie before.
Right.
And now I think it's probably I bet you it's like a third.
Well, that's
if I had to guess.
and that's what I was going to say. It's probably a third less because and it's just gotten so dicey.
I think 2/3 less. I think the net would be 1/3.
Yeah,
if I had to guess.
Yeah, it's not like the good old days. That's all I know. I'm just like, it's it's hard to be a publisher.
Well, it goes back to this: people that do anything for a living, it's always tough.
Yeah.
People struggled back in the Willie Nelson days. They struggled during the Barbara Mandrell days. They struggled during the early Rascal Flats days, and now they're struggling in the Sam Hunt days. Yeah. It's always tough to be great at anything.
It really is.
The only thing that keeps your guy in town that maybe thought about maybe leaving is that he loves it.
Yes.
So you got to love it. You love publishing.
Yes.
You love artist development.
Love it.
We didn't even talk. What time is it? How long are we into this?
I don't know.
What time is it now?
11.
Yeah, so we got to wrap. But we didn't even talk about Brothers Osborne, which you pulled out of nowhere and catapulted into stardom. I'm sure there was other people that were part of the Campbell's back on that.
Yes.
But that's what I see for you. It's just like the best predictors of people's future are their pasts.
Yes.
And you've had one hell of a past.
Oh, thank you.
Some girl that grew up, in Kentucky.
In Louisville, Kentucky, yes.
Moves to town.
Loving music.
And you look at your history, you've really done something really special that is uniquely you.
I have a quick Kelly King story she doesn't know about.
No, what?
So, this was a long time, 5-6 years ago. I had sent you some songs for Rascal Flats, and you had called me to connect to pop writers. Do you remember they were doing the LA stuff?
I do.
I had sent you a song that, was pretty left field and for them. And anyways, I remember you wrote me back. You called or wrote, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but you said, listen, played it for the guys. And I think Howard Benson was in on that.
Yes, okay, time period.
And you said, good news and bad news. The bad news is they're not cutting the song because it feels too young.
Yeah.
The good news is they all think this is a really big song that you should send to One Direction. I don't know if you remember this.
I don't, but I'm so glad that I hope you.
I went on and I created a boy band. I don't know if you know this.
No.
It just passed 3 billion views. And it's all because of you.
Oh my gosh, that makes me so happy.
I'll play you the stuff after the show.
I love more than anything hearing things that that indirectly happen that I have no idea.
Yeah, that was entirely inspired by you.
Well, that's so wonderful. Thank you for telling me that. And I just had a writer. I signed him to his first deal, and he sent me the sweetest email saying how he was so excited to be able. He was getting his first award, and he said, "I couldn't wait to be able to thank you." On stage, because that's what I've always wanted to do. He's like, but obviously I'm not going to be able to do it because this year, the COVID situation. But I just want to thank you and know that you've, and it just was like, you just don't even think. So anyway, that's when you really feel good as a publisher. Because let me tell you, a lot of people, like you said, want to blame us and we don't do enough, or we don't get a lot of pats on the back. So that's very nice.
Well, you're one of the good ones.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm fortunate for the time that we got to spend together. Thank you so much. Not just on this pod, I'm talking about our career together. So thank you. Hopefully I thanked you in the past, but if not, I want to thank you now for being so stellar and helping me through those first years are so crucial.
Yeah.
And you really took care of all that.
Well, thank you for being a hardworking, incredible writer and friend, and always making me laugh. And thank you so much for having me on this podcast.
Do you have anywhere that any socials that people can follow you on?
My Instagram, Kingpin Music.
Mm-hmm.
I try to post as much as I can, about my writers. I've got a kingpinmusic.com website if they just want to check out who I work with, and I think they can send me messages, if they want to try to reach out. I don't put a lot on there just because I don't want to, get too much.
Stay on the message,
But it is out there, and that's about it. I think.
Well, thank you. We love you.
Oh, love you guys.
Thanks for coming.
So much.
You're like
Thank you.
you're a true power player in Nashville, like it or not. I know that's not your thing, like to count that as a commodity.
Yeah.
But you're the real deal. The work in this town gets done by a small few that mostly go under the radar. The true power players. You're one of them. So thank you for coming on and shedding the light on not only your process and the successes you've had, but like just sort of what people can expect if they ever thought like, hey, what if I moved to town and tried to be a writer in Nashville? I think you answered put a lot of good answers into that pile. So.
Good. I hope so. Well, thank you again so much.
Thank you.
Thank you much. That's it for this week.
All
We'll
right.
see you all. Signing off from the West Bar.